Welcome to Gatecrashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, and our code is this: to make all things more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. So, if you've noticed for a bit, you know we started as a DC-only podcast, and today is actually a milestone for us. We actually have the fucking Batman with us. Well, I mean, he is the singer of a widely successful band, Black Veil Brides, whose newest album, The Phantom Tomorrow, is out now, and the accompanying comic book will come out soon. I am joined by Andy Biersack. How are you?
Happy to be here. You know, I did get to voice Batman once in my life, so I do get to say that I was hired to be Batman in something, which is, I believe, is the only dream I ever had. So
yeah, so you did it.
I peaked at 30, and it's all going to be worse from here unless I continue to get to play Batman and things.
Listen, I mean, I was listening to it earlier and it's like, damn, he's a really good Batman.
Thank you. I had years of practice to no one. I just sitting alone. When they called me to ask me if I could do that, there's nothing I've ever been offered in my life that was an easier layup for me, where I was like, yeah, no, I can do that. Like, that's, most things require, as you know, you want to really get into it, and like acting or anything, I got to get into the character. With that, it was, I'm fully prepared for this. Let's do it right now. Spending
a lot of time alone talking to yourself.
Yeah, I called my mom Alfred for like 2 years of my life as a kid. I'm not even joking.
Oh, I made my mother call me Tommy for a year of my life, because around the Power Rangers time, so.
Fair enough. Okay, understood.
Very similar aesthetic. But I know you're from the music world and I'm from the comics world, so I don't know if you know that I'm a pretty hard-hitting journalist.
Okay.
And now we start off with pretty hard-hitting questions. A lot of people are really afraid for this one. What's your favorite sandwich?
Okay. Well, that is hard. You know, I didn't prepare adequately for this, so I'm going to have to think about it for a second. You're going to have the classic dead air on your. I'm just going to go totally silent and stop filling this space while I consider.
All right, we can come back to it.
My favorite sandwich. All right, I know what it is. I haven't eaten it in 10 years. No more. I haven't eaten it in 15 years, and I don't eat any of the components of the sandwich anymore because I've been vegetarian for about 10 years. But there was a salami cheese. It was like a meat lover's sandwich from a place called Togo's in Burbank, California, that no longer exists and is now a Panda Express. And when I first lived here, I lived in my car. I lived in my 98 Cadillac Eldorado. And I would go to this, I would get my money together and I would go to Togo's and I would get this sandwich and I would just enjoy the shit out of it because it was probably my only meal of any substance that would happen that week. And so I have great joy and remembrance of, like, it might have been a shit sandwich. I'm not a literal shit sandwich, but it might have been a shitty sandwich. But it meant so much to little me to have that sandwich. So I'll always hold on to those memories.
Damn, that's a heavy hitting answer. You were like, I got dead air, but that's a very meaningful answer too.
You will find that I will give you a harrowing tale to just about anything you ask me.
Beautiful, because we got some stuff in store. So you got to voice Batman in the Dark Knight's Death Metal Sonic Metalverse series. Now, I've heard you talk a few times about how it's like a dream come true, and we just spoke about that. But I wanted to know, like, how did you prepare the voice? What did you try to channel? What Batman were you thinking of? Who were you trying to be?
I was trying not to just do Kevin Conroy, I think, was the main thing. Like, you know, as a kid growing up and loving the character so much in every different iteration, the one that stands out to everybody, and the reason why I believe it's, you know, every video game you play, you download Waze, you can have Kevin Conroy's Batman direct you to where you're going. Like, Kevin Conroy's voice, for people of the generation that I'm from especially, it is Batman. So trying not to just do Kevin Conroy, I think, was my main objective.
Damn, that's got to be a tough one. It is interesting to think, like, growing up like that was the voice. Like, I can see all these movies and stuff, but like when I read the comics, that's still the voice in my head.
Well, part of that is also because the movies have never given you what the comics give you, which is the internal monologue. You've never had a movie that speaks as Batman. Batman barely ever talks in the movies, and if he does, It's not, he's never telling you about his thoughts. So in the comics, you're reading these panels full of internal monologue that's speaking to you as the reader. And so we have this opportunity to personify the character so much more. And that's why someone like Kevin Conroy's voice is stuck in all of our heads, because when we read the comics, we need a voice for this internal monologue that's taking up all these pages.
Damn. Yeah, listen, you said it. You're very insightful. So we were talking beforehand, and The Phantom Tomorrow is a wild, fantastic concept album.
Thank you.
That follows a world that's really in like a dark place. But we get to follow this vigilante in this group. The hero is called Blackbird, and the group is The Phantom Tomorrow. With you being such a big comic book fan, where did you start building your own vigilante? Where, like, as the band, where did that start?
You mean like building this character?
Yeah.
It really started with, I've always been fascinated with the origin story thing, because it's kind of so played out. Like, everything's an origin story. We have to see the Waynes die in every single movie. We have to constantly find out why these characters became these characters. And I wanted to think about, what if I did an origin story that was predicated on somebody who you don't really think deserves to be a hero and doesn't really want to be, and not in the sort of like, what was that Will Smith movie with the bad superhero? Hawk or whatever it was called?
Hancock.
Hancock.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do like a irreverent, like, oh, this guy sucks, but he's got powers. I really thought, what if you took a story of a character who is duplicitous and kind of awful, and then they die, and their penance in the afterlife is to have to be heroic and virtuous, and that's their only choice. And not them pushing against it, but almost like a religious experience, having to accept this plight. And I grew up Catholic. There's a huge amount of like Catholic guilt that exists, where heaven is not necessarily about the joy of it. It's about the fear of not getting there. Everything that you're ever told is about kind of being afraid to not be a good person because you might not end up in heaven. Not like, hey, you should do good shit because it would be good for you to do good shit. It's like, hey, don't do bad shit because you'll get poked in the ass by the devil. So like, I liked the idea of creating a character that's kind of rooted in all that stuff. And then visually, I've always been into Darkman. I've always been into the Invisible Man. I've always loved, whether it's V from V for Vendetta or Rorschach, or obviously Batman. And I was into wrestling a lot as a kid. So characters like Sting and Vampiro and Undertaker, all of those characters, I thought, what if we just put them all into a blender, rather than me trying to come up with this character that's entirely of my own design and idea? What if I took all this stuff that I really loved and basically made this Frankenstein character out of all these different aesthetics? And that's kind of where we ended up.
With the look, you would say those types of things inspired him more than something you wanted to bring out of your own mind?
I mean, I guess I've just been drawing characters like this since I was a little kid. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I was let's take this piece of the bat suit or this thing from Darkman. It was more like, if I have a pen and paper, I'm drawing a character that looks like this. And in my mind, that is, it could be one day it could look a little bit more like Spawn. One day it could look a little bit more like Batman, whatever. All these characters kind of exist in my mind as an artist, as a creative. That is the things that inspired me the most. The reason I'm a dude who is almost 31 years old, and I wear tight black pants and a leather jacket and all black clothes every day of my life is because when I was 6 years old, I saw these characters and thought, I'm going to be that shit. And so that's just been a huge informative thing in my life.
That's all. Like that's such a good aesthetic. Like as I told you, I'm like trying to like learn about you and the band to research this. And I'm like, this dude's fucking got it. Like, I'm watching all these videos and like, you have such a good aesthetic and you're always on.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
With this character, the album cover, the art for that, was that something you found specifically? When you do things like this and the comic, are you looking for artists who are going to capture what's in your minds?
I think one of the things I wanted to do was, and it goes back to these characters that I love, like with Batman, you've got, let's say we've got the Adam West version of Batman, and then you've got Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, right? Very different aesthetics, both the same character, both accepted generally by the fandom as valid representations of the character. Some people like one and don't like the other. Some people prefer one or the other, but they're both valid versions of the character. So I thought, what if we just expedite that process and have a bunch of different versions of this character created by different artists? So every time you see it represented, whether that's the live action one in the music videos or the album cover or different art that we have on t-shirts or the action figure design or the comic book design, they're all slightly different variations on this same character. And so one of the things I've learned in the years of doing this is you're a lot better off leaving the creativity to people who want to be creative. So I act as a guide with these artists and go, here's my drawings, here's what I think the character looks like, here's these little points of like things that need to be in there. Otherwise, do what you want with it. On the album cover, Eli Ron Counter, who did the album cover, I would have never thought to go as far with the bird elements as he did. You know, if you look, his hand that's holding up over his face, it has a talon-esque texture to it, and all of that is stuff that really came from his own interpretation, whereas my characterization of the character had talon-shaped gloves, more like a spawn, kind of sharp fingers. So being able to have all these different representations just comes from wanting, like, it's a cool thing for me. Like, I'm a comic book fan. I'm a fan of this medium. To be able to create a character and go, hey, really talented people, can you make versions of this thing I dreamed up? Like, it's a pretty ideal scenario.
It is interesting to hear that how you're approaching this. It has more of that. It has the more of the comic book feel that it's like it's a group thing, and it's not just one person's. Especially because you're in a band, and those things must play into all of that. Now, there is one specific thing about the music videos that I did need to ask about. I think it's the Field of Bones video, Blackbird uses a spray can with the lighter. Is that a direct homage to Rorschach? Like,
yes.
Is that good? I was watching and I was like, I feel like this is a Rorschach moment.
Yeah, in Crimson Skies, you mean? Yeah, that's a Rorschach moment for sure. Yes. That's the thing, is like it's just fun to be able to Easter egg this stuff, little things that are in there. We shot the torch video at the cemetery and at the little location where both 1 and 3 Nightmare on Elm Streets were shot. So, like, if you're a fan of that type of stuff, a lot of people that are fans of that saw that and went, wow, they did that there. And being able to build these aesthetics that are based on my 30 years of nerd fandom, like, to being able to throw all that into these things is like, I'm like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah. And so with that, we've got the villain as well, 9, who in the videos has a beautiful aesthetic. I was more curious about, to you, what makes a villain...
Here's his head, right here. No, you can't. The listener can't see it.
Yeah, they can't see it, but I sure can. Dude, that thing's so cool. For you, like, what makes a good villain? Like, the thematics, the costume, what goes into that for you?
I like an unidentifiable thing about the character that you can't quite figure out. I think the best rogues in comics are always those things where it walks a line of, is this a good guy? Is this a bad guy? What's the motivation? If it's not all spelled out for you, I think it's always better. Part of the problem with a lot of characters, and one of the reasons why, the Joker has become kind of this laborious character in pop culture, and I love the Joker, but the constant need to show all these different backstories and explanations for the character takes away some of the magic of what this character really is at its core, is this kind of like ultimate trickster character who's kind of a lunatic who you can't quite figure out and you don't know where he came from. That's a great idea, just on the surface of having that. Once you feel the need to constantly explain, it takes away some of the villainy, because you start to go, well, his life was really bad beforehand, so I guess I can understand why he got to this point. And it takes away kind of the fun. And I love the Killing Joke. I think most people that read comics love the idea of these different backstories. But even Alan Moore has said that it might have been a mistake to give such a specific backstory to the Joker, because it maybe takes away some of the joy. So when we made 9, the idea was I wanted to take a long time through this process for anybody to figure out whether this is really a villain, what his motivation is, why he's here, what he's doing, and for it through the course of the comic book series, when people read them, to figure out like what his job is, what he does, why he's there, and in ways that aren't, oh, and here's why he is this way because he was picked on when he was a kid. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because like, I don't want that to have to be, because then it makes it more difficult. Because the truth of the matter is, as a kid who was picked on when I was a kid, I don't want to have to go, well, I guess I'll be the villain now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want the backstory is always like those of us who struggled in school and were made fun of and teased. We're constantly shown this mirror where it goes, well, if you were a terrible villain, it would make a lot of sense. Whereas I want it to be, because life was difficult when I was young, I found strength in myself to be able to galvanize my interests and to be heroic in a way that was applicable to the career path that I chose, and to be able to help other people. Not now I'm a murderous psychopath because people were mean to me.
Yeah, and I think it's all about like taking those things you've been given and using those tools to do something.
Yeah.
And I did want to talk about that because I've seen a couple times about the track Torch. It seems to be about tools that are uncovering the truth and things and like knowledge and things like that. For you, what do you think those tools are as an artist?
I think the most important thing you can do to try to be honest is to never really consider, and this is going to sound kind of bizarre, but to not, as you're making something, to not consider the reaction that it will get. I think that too often people predicate what they create on, will this succeed? Is this good for my audience? Will people respond to this? And it takes at that exact moment that you're considering its reception, you're cutting off the creation at the knees because you're not making something that is genuine. You're essentially insulting the audience by saying, I know what you're going to like. I know better than you know what you're going to like. And you're taking away kind of the genuine nature of it. So to be true and honest in the creation of anything and to find the truth in what you're making, you have to just be really honest with yourself and follow your own compass and not be afraid to have people say that what you're doing sucks or they don't like it, because that's subjective. You can't really determine that. But if you're making something that to you is truthful and real, they can't take that part away from you, regardless of what the critical reception is or the audience reception is.
So you would say when you create things that you personally would like you're proud of, rather than worrying if someone else is going to buy it.
I want to be in a position where I'm in my favorite band. I want to be in a position where my characters that I'm creating are the best things I've ever seen. I don't want to be in a position where I'm in a band or I make things, but some other people do it better and I like their stuff more. At the end of the day, it doesn't exclude me from enjoying other art. But if I have an opportunity and a platform to make things, the objective is to make the ultimate thing that I most want to see in the world. And if you're not doing that, then I don't believe that you're doing a service to your own creativity.
With that being said, art inspires people, just in general. As someone who's creating for yourself, what do you hope people take away from the things you make? Like, what lessons do you hope someone can learn from your art?
That they can do what I do, that there's nothing remarkable about me or anybody else, that the idea of making something is just boiled down to, I did this thing and I put all of myself into it. And the ultimate objective for my entire career has always been to be able to impart some level of nothing about me is anything that you can't be. I wasn't shit from the sky by God to rock the earth. I'm just a person who had good circumstances, a little bit of luck, and works really hard. And that can be anybody. And that, to me, is the most important part of it, is to take it and go, this person believed fully in what they're doing, and so should I. I can do what I want. It's not to take away from it and go, wow, that person is a god among men. And that, that's like, because I feel like that's that kind of self-adulation and the kind of feeling that a lot of people get when they find any success is so incredibly toxic and ridiculous that you somehow now are more human than human because you sold a lot of records. If the objective is to create something, then that creation should be something that can inspire others to create, and we can continue the pantheon of creation throughout our society.
Damn. Now, with that, like, in this story, Blackbird really isn't an absolute. He's got his own flaws and failures, and it seems like a lot of this is dealing with the ideal of heroes. What dangers do you think there are in idealization?
I think at the end of the day, people are innately flawed. All of us are. And when you create these kind of monoliths of heroes and you make somebody out to be something other than just another composite of a person on the street, you run the risk of losing your own identity and wrapping up so much of yourself in somebody else. It's completely, I think, healthy and okay to look at somebody and go, that person inspires me so fucking much. And I love them, and I want the t-shirt, and I want the poster, and I want to be like them. That's totally cool. But it should never be about that person is more than me. And I think that is sometimes the risk that is run with heroes and fandom, is that it removes somebody's onus on themselves to create and gives it all to somebody else. It's the same thing with politicians. There is a certain cultural thing that exists, especially now, where I call it like avatarism, where people apply their own strengths and weaknesses and ideas to someone else so that they don't have to do it themselves. They'll go, oh, that politician represents everything about me. I've never met them. They don't give a shit about me or my family, but they are everything. So I'm going to wear their hat and their T-shirt and their flag, and they're going to be me now. And I think that that is a dangerous road to walk. So I think that heroes are important because you need to be inspired. But I think that that is the purpose that they serve. And by the way, by heroes, I don't mean literal heroes, people that actually save lives and do things that are heroic. I mean the pedestal of creation, the idea that this person inspires me in a creative way. I think it's a really important thing, but I think you have to be able to like temper that with, and I can do it too, or I can do whatever. You don't have to go, I love that band, so now I'm going to be in a band. You could go, I love that band and they work really hard and I want to be whatever job, and I'm going to bust my ass so that I can get it. And I'm going to listen to these songs on the drive to work and pump myself up and know that this is what I want. I think that that's a more, at least in my, and I don't fucking know anything, but I think in my opinion, that's a healthier way of looking at it.
Yeah. And so also with this, the whole concept, when I went in, I knew Azrael was your favorite Batman. I couldn't help but look for like religious themes in your world because Azrael's got the Saint Dumas stuff. Now, in this world, the ninth circle is like the big bad.
Yeah.
Do you think religion is a tool of their control? Like, even if it's not religion in a god or something like that, but their doctrine, is that an important theme to you and the dangers of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that religion is this kind of like large swath of a boogeyman that people on both sides of the aisle, so to speak, use as a talking point. And it sometimes it's no longer about belief in anything so much as it's just about I'm either for or against this idea. And I liked the idea of, for this comic book series and for this record, taking away the teeth a little bit and having it just be a pretty transparent idea of this is the way things are. If you don't believe that this is the way things are, then you don't exist. You know what I mean? And so removing some of the gray area, you know, and not making it about theism, but making it about good versus evil. And one side just happens to utilize this ultra strict regulations on how life should be lived, and the other side is kind of fighting against that.
And I only have this last one for you because it's been in my mind since I heard you say it. In one of the, I think you were going track by track, and you said, regardless of what you did yesterday, it's never too late to begin again. And that sentence just stuck with me, and I've ruminated on the entire thing. Do you feel that you are in a place to keep doing that? Like, as an artist, as a person, do you think you are still getting better every day?
I think you have to, you know, even if, because again, it's so subjective as to whether somebody else agrees, but if you feel that you're improving and you're working towards a happier version of yourself, then that's the most important thing. We can all, you know, dunk on older artists who are trying to do records and go, oh, they lost it. But it doesn't, what we say doesn't fucking matter. That person caring about what they're making is ultimately the most important thing. So if I believe that I'm improving, then that's all that matters. And the same goes for you or anybody else.
Before I let you go, I did have to ask you another hard-hitting one.
I'm ready.
If you had a Rube Goldberg machine, what would it do?
So you're going to have to walk me through this one more time because I've already forgotten what it is.
It's okay.
A little peek behind the curtain. Prior to this starting, I didn't know what it meant, and now I still don't know what it means.
So it's a super complicated machine. Like, you cut the Mousetrap was the game where you like cut the rope, the cage knocks down some dominoes, it all goes down. It's a super complicated machine to eliminate an easy task in your life.
Grocery bags. I've always said that if I was asked about what my superpower would be, it would be to have go-go gadget arms that could bring in all the grocery bags at the same time. Which I've tried to do. But the problem is I can do it, but it's a very uncomfortable walk with hundreds of grocery bags on my own. So I would like to create a very insane contraption that, and I've thought about this actually a lot, that would be a pulley system from my garage to my kitchen. And a hole in the floor of the kitchen would open up, and I could pull the grocery bags into the kitchen, and then they would be like some sort of conveyor belt system over to the counter, and then there would be like cartoon hands, like white glove cartoon hands, and that would open up the bags, sort the stuff, and then conveyor belt down straight into the refrigerator.
That is a solid one. No one has said that yet. So the Phantom of Tomorrow is out now. You can get it anywhere you buy your music. The comic should be out soon. We'll update you on that once it is. Andy, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it. Talk to you next time.